Welcome to the Netma Show, where we discuss news and current events and analyze how those things impact your everyday life. My name is Kellen, and this week we're going to talk about how your actions can come back to haunt you decades later, and how they can also derail your career. This week, our conversation is going to revolve around the state of Virginia and three men that you've probably never heard of until now. Those people are Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, followed by Justin Fairfax, the lieutenant governor of Virginia, and Mark Herring, the attorney general of Virginia. This week, we learned that the governor, Mr. Northam, wore blackface while he was in college in the 1980s. Now, as soon as this news broke, people called for his resignation. And if he were to do so, the vacancy in the position of governor would fall to the lieutenant governor, whom in this case is Justin Fairfax. Well, we'll also learn this week that Justin Fairfax is being accused of a sexual assault stemming from 2004. And the woman accusing him is named Vanessa Tyson, who says that both he and she were working at the Democratic National Convention when they had to go to a hotel room to exchange documents. He proceeded to kiss her, which at this point, that was consensual. However, he then forced her into a sexual act that she was not consenting to. Now, since that incident, she has not spoken to Mr. Fairfax and in fact attempted to detail her account a couple of years ago in a post with the Washington Post. Now, they chose not to run that article, so now that she learned that he had the ability to become the governor of Virginia, that's where she brought her story back up. Now, if he were to leave his position or be forced to leave his position, that vacancy now would fall to Mark Herring, the Attorney General of Virginia. But surprise, surprise, he admits to wearing blackface in the 1980s as well, which makes me wonder, what the hell was going on in the 1980s to where people thought that it was okay to just wear blackface? At no point in history was it ever okay. It has always been looked down upon, and you should not do it. Typically, we run into blackface incidents every Halloween where some frat boy or sorority girl thinks it's okay to wear it to a party. But here we are in Black History Month. Now, it's important to note that the three men that I just named, Mr. Northam, Mr. Fairfax, and Mr. Herring, are all Democrats. And if they all were to leave their positions, the vacancy of governor would then fall to a man named Kirk Cox, a Republican who is the Speaker of the House for the state of Virginia. Now, the Democratic Party would be put in a really uncomfortable position because they'd have to choose whether to stand behind blackface and black people and getting rid of Mr. Northam and Mr. Herring for that, and standing behind women by getting rid of Mr. Fairfax, right? And if they were to do those things, they would then be handing over to the state, putting it into Republican hands, which they definitely don't want to do. But in my opinion, if you really want to stand your ground and you really want to make a statement and really make this about the Me Too movement as well as your support for the black community, you would have to get rid of all three of those guys. That would show so much integrity, not to just black people, not just to women, not just your party, but also to the nation, because they would see that the party isn't just about the warm and fuzzies, just saying, oh, Me Too and Black Lives Matter. They're actually going to hold people accountable, because you're damn sure that they'd be going after any Republican that would be accused of sexual abuse or even wearing blackface. So if you're going to go that route, you have to hold yourself accountable. And I'm mentioning all this because at least in Mr. Fairfax's case, he's the only one that's actually been accused of a crime that could have him removed. And in fact, there are people saying that they are going to file articles of impeachment against him. Now, all three men, they refuse to leave their positions as of right now. And in fact, Mr. Fairfax has been accused of rape by another woman. This woman's name is Meredith Watson, who alleges that he raped her while they were both in college at Duke during the 2000 school year, right? That's crazy. And, in my opinion, she isn't lying, because she has an email where she detailed this back in 2016 when someone was asking her for funds to help support Mr. Fairfax's campaign. I mean, I think that's insane. So now this brings us to the question of what happens when someone is accused of something that's looked down upon, whether that's sexual abuse or whether that be blackface or something else along those lines. Does that mean that they lose their position of power? Does that mean that their career comes to an end? Because in my opinion, I think all three of these men are going to face an uphill battle trying to get anyone to ever vote for them ever again. At least in my opinion, Mr. Fairfax's career is effectively over. Even if he doesn't get impeached, who's going to vote for him again? Are you really going to vote for the guy that is accused of sexual abuse? I mean, I wouldn't, right? And I know that there are a ton of people that are out there saying that Mr. Fairfax is being unfairly picked on because the other two guys, the two white guys, Mr. Northam and Mr. Herring, they're saying they're going to stay in their positions, right? But he's the one that's being threatened with impeachment and being removed from his position. And folks are saying that, it's because he's black. And I understand. But kind of like my comments about R. Kelly in one of our previous videos, that is that I'm all in support of black people and black men, black women being successful and growing their careers and wealth. But you have to do it the right way. Think about Bill Cosby. He was a great positive role model until everyone found out he had been raping people for decades. And once you get to that point, something has to be done. I want every black person to succeed, but when you're hurting other people, and in this case, hurting black people, no, you can't keep your position anymore. And I'm sure, there can be another black politician that can come in and follow in the footsteps of Mr. Fairfax and the good that he may have been doing for the people of Virginia. And when I apply this to let's say, your career in any other field, should you lose your career because you were accused of something? And in this case, it's harder to prove or harder to have evidence for sexual abuse, sexual assault, and in many cases rape, because in this case, it's been decades later. And in my opinion, yeah, I think if I was accused and, I knew that I was innocent, I would fight back too. I would say, absolutely not. You have to prove it, right? And then get rid of me if you can say definitively that I did this thing. But in these cases, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Fairfax did it. I mean, come on, an email from 2016 detailing this, a woman that had already gone to the Washington Post and attempted to tell her story years ago. It's not like they're just coming out of the woodwork. And it may be appropriate to make some change. And the Democratic Party has the opportunity to make a statement to black people, to women, to the Democratic Party, to the American people, to show that they're just not talking about Me Too. They're just not talking about Black Lives Matter. They are actually going to have teeth and use them against their own party when someone does the wrong thing. That would make a statement across the nation and lend a lot of credibility to the party. Now, I'd love to know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about all three of these men. Do you think that the Democratic Party should get rid of all three of them and just hand the state over to Republicans? Or do you think that, they should find some sort of middle ground, have a whole case and hearing about all three men to see if they really do deserve being removed from their positions? What do you think about these incidents and accusations when it comes to people in the professional, like banking or technology? Should you lose your job because you're accused? Let me know down in the comments. I'm interested to see what you say. And until next time, peace.